How high are your expectations for Jougan itself? I mean, how much do you hope that pure dojutsu power will become an absolute force capable of defeating the boss of the Divine Tree people himself, named Jura? Yeah, that's at least what the Boruto fandom has been hoping for from the Jougan so far. Because, of course, it's not just about Jura, but Momoshiki as well. Yeah, you know what I mean, right? But honestly, ever since we were first introduced to Jougan, for some reason, I think almost all fans have indirectly placed this eye far above any other dojutsu eye that has ever existed in the Naruto universe. Because as we know, in the Naruto era, there are so many dojutsu with unique abilities. And also, one of the most interesting parts of the dojutsu eyes that have been extremely overpowered so far is the Rinnegan, or even the Rinne Sharingan, right? But since its revelation at the beginning of the Boruto at Next Generations chapter, where Boruto awakens the Jougan eye in the middle of a battle against Kawaki at the Hokage statue, I feel that at that point, fans seem to feel that it was an eye that was far more special, far more overpowered, and so on, than any eye that had ever existed in Naruto history itself. Because once again, believe it or not, I think surveys have proven that many people unconsciously consider that eye to be the answer to all problems in the Boruto story, whatever the case may be, including dealing with all threats. Yeah, that's just how it is. Because if we think about it a second time, every time a new enemy appears that seems impossible to defeat, one name is always mentioned first: Jougan. Like I said just now, those eyes seem to be the complete answer to all existing problems. But honestly, whatever your hopes or even expectations are, they're not entirely wrong. Because basically, it's not just a coincidence or even without reason. Jougan was introduced as something different from any dojutsu that has ever existed. It doesn't follow the rules of Byakugan, it doesn't obey the Sharingan system, and it can't be simplified as just Otsutsuki's eyes. From the start, Jougan was built as a symbol of Boruto's highest potential. The problem is, this symbol later turned into a narrative burden. Is that right? Unwittingly, many fans began to see Jougan not as part of Boruto's journey, but as an instant solution. Every major conflict always leads to the same question: when will Boruto awaken or activate the Jougan again? Does he really not intend to use those eyes? But guys, since I'm basically more interested in looking at things from various perspectives, I think Boruto's story is actually moving in the opposite direction. The greater the threat that arises, the clearer it becomes that one ability, no matter how powerful, will never be enough. But at this point, what do you guys think? Because, according to my personal assumption, one important thing is often forgotten. Jougan is not a power that can be awakened or used at will. Boruto does not master it, does not understand it, and cannot even rely on it in a life and death battle. Making Jougan the main pillar is the same as placing hope in something that even the character himself cannot control yet. At this point, fan expectations actually collide with the story's logic. I know that when I say this, many of you probably have plenty of reasons to disagree, but at the very least, we have to accept the fact that Jougan is not a power Boruto can truly awaken or control whenever he wants. Especially with Jura's entry into the story, this issue has become much clearer. Jura is not the type of enemy who can be defeated simply by seeing further or realizing the hidden truth. I don't know what phrase would best describe this, but I think you know what I mean. On the other hand, of course, so far we have been given clues, or perhaps more accurately, answers from Jura's threat itself. Because judging from each chapter and how he fights, one of the broken parts is his physical endurance, his regeneration, and his ability to continue to survive any attack directed at him. Because I think Jura is a truly unreasonable enemy entity. Especially if you look at this part. When Kawaki managed to corner Jura in the middle of the Land of Wind battle, Kawaki unleashed a power that I believe was not just a simple output. Because if we compare it to how Kawaki destroyed Garo, the output of that attack was truly massive. Yeah, I know that at this point we can't really compare them, especially since the power Kawaki used when fighting Garo and when fighting Jura is significantly different. Moreover, Garo and Jura are two different entities with vastly different levels of power and endurance. But at the very least, we know that the power Kawaki unleashed to destroy Jura cannot be completely underestimated, right? The problem is that Jura seems to show absolute dominance by summoning the roots of the God Tree as both a defensive technique and a means of regeneration. So if we go back to the original context, can Jougan really be the answer? Or is Jougan not the absolute answer? And ironically, could Jougan actually not be the answer at all to all the problems and threats in the shinobi world? And this is why placing too much hope in Jougan actually limits our view of the direction of the Boruto story. We forget that the history of Naruto has always shown a consistent pattern. Enemies at the god level are never defeated by a single ability. there is always a transformation. There is always a surge in existence, and that surge almost always comes from a source that is not immediately visible as the ace card. So the question we should be asking isn't when Jougan will fully activate or whether Boruto can awaken Jougan at will. But what I think is very relevant for us to ask at this point is, why are we so sure Boruto can win with Jougan? Or what if Jougan can't really help Boruto defeat every threat in this world, including Jura or even Momoshiki himself, who is inside his body? Because if we let go of that assumption for just a moment, we will begin to see other clues that have been hidden in plain sight. Clues about alternative powers, about transformations that make more sense narratively, and about the possibility that Boruto's victory will actually come from something that has been there all along, not from the eyes we've been waiting for. And this is where the real discussion begins. Who says the battle against Jura can only be won through Jougan? This is precisely where Boruto's story enters its most dangerous yet most intriguing phase. We're at a point where raw power alone is no longer enough, even for characters like Boruto, Kawaki, or Himawari. The threat they face now is not an ordinary enemy, but an existence that forces the shinobi world to level up or slowly perish. Unbeknownst to them, Konoha Village is currently the gathering point for three great sources of power born from different paths. They are not only the heirs of the old generation, but also symbols of a new era full of imbalance. The problem is, even though their power is great, they all still stand as separate entities. And against an enemy that is beyond normal combat logic, separate powers will only end in futility. In other words, placing too much hope in Jougan alone is, I think, just nonsense, and can certainly be called an empty, selfish hope. The history of Naruto has repeatedly shown one pattern that never changes. God-class enemies are never defeated by individual strength alone. There is always a moment of existence leap, when a character surpasses the original limits and enters a new form. It's not just a power-up, but a change in status, from a strong human to a symbol of a new balance. And this is the point that is now being awaited in the Boruto story. The question is no longer who is the strongest, but who will transform to the absolute point. Because as long as Boruto, Kawaki, and Himawari continue to fight with their old foundations of power, the outcome is predictable. Jura has something they currently lack: the ability to survive anything and return as if he were never hurt. Regeneration and claw marks make every attack seem meaningless. This is why the old strategy will not work. Many wild theories have emerged about the new power that may descend upon Boruto, ranging from a creator entity to the Otsutsuki lineage that has not been fully revealed. But among all that speculation, there is one path that feels much more reasonable, closer, and, ironically, has been planted since the beginning of the story. A power that was once an absolute symbol in the Naruto era, but now seems to have been forgotten by many fans. The clues do not come from grand dialogues or explicit revelations, but from small details that have been overlooked. Physical traits, old character designs, and even past illustrations that were once called coincidences are now proving to be true one by one. This pattern shows that Boruto's future power is not only about inheritance, but also about chakra that has long been in contact with him without ever truly awakening. So, in conclusion, relying on and hoping for Jougan alone sounds selfish. After all, even though the main character is Boruto, we cannot ignore several other important characters, especially Himawari and Kawaki. But once again, it's not just about Kawaki and Himawari. Even though in this era we have several excellent shinobi and the like, such as Sarada, Koji, Damon, and several other characters, for some reason, hoping that Himawari and Kawaki will help Boruto defeat Jura is something that makes much more sense than just hoping for Jougan alone. Yeah, that's how it is. But what do you think? If you enjoyed this video, please help me reach 100 likes. I'm Nim, thank you for watching, and see you in the next video. Bye-bye, dada bio.